Hey guys, welcome back to another Calibria video, and we are looking at Abyss Lord. So overall, I have rated him as an A rating. Don't get discouraged, he is good. I've just knocked him pretty hard on a few areas of the game. So story mode, I gave him a B just because he can help you out in the story mode to progress, but he's definitely not going to be a farmer. He's kind of a slower damage dealer compared to some of the other heroes out there. In Arena, he does have an aura that helps out with Arena, and he can provide pretty good support for you in Arena. I just don't think he's going to be one of those that you're going to look to lean on for your Arena team. In Colossus, I actually gave him an SS rating just for how I have him geared out and how I use him. He is just fantastic. He helps out so much. Leviathan, I could have probably rated him a little higher. I don't know. I'm still trying to fill that out, but so far I gave him an S rating on that, which is really good. And then the Vapor Dreamlands, he can perform pretty well in that as you progress in the higher levels and those fights get a little longer. He can really help you out in those areas, especially with those bosses on those fights. The lair, this was the one that I do not like him in the lair, just because you can't really utilize all the burns that he does. You can't stun the bosses because that's kind of what I use him for. So overall, for me, he's just kind of useless in the lair. If you found some use for him in a lair, let me know. So far, I just don't think he's good. Okay, so for his skills, his first slot here, his A1 is an AoE attack, which we always like an AoE attack on our first skill. And if you have it booked out, it'll be a 100% chance to place a burn on those enemies for 2 turns. One thing to mention here on some of these skills is his damage is based on attack and defense. So potentially it can hit pretty solid. On his second slot here, it is another AoE attack, and it will put a burn on the enemies for 3 turns, as well as if they already have burns on them, it'll extend those burns. So you can actually get a lot of burns on enemies if you build this guy right. The second option here, this is basically an AoE attack, and based on how many burns they have, he'll be able to heal himself up a little bit. Right now, I'm not utilizing this skill, but in the future, I don't know. In the future, if you fight a lot of enemies at once, this potentially could be a very strong skill. So for his third slot here, this is the passive that I actually use on him. It's a counterattack passive, and when you have it booked out, when you have it scrolled out here, it is a 25% chance to counterattack every time. And when you counterattack, you're going to use your A1 skill, so you can AoE attack. Every time you get hit, you have a chance to AoE attack and put on burns. So remember this counterattack, and remember the A1 AoE, because we're going to talk about that when we go through the gear. So some of his other passives here, this one has a chance to put a defense buff on himself. Right now, I don't really use this. I don't have any means to use this right now. Maybe in the future, but currently I don't. And this one here, it has, when you have it fully leveled up here, it has a 25% chance to absorb all the damage. That's a pretty high chance to absorb all damage, as well as dispel one of the enemy buffs with each attack. So this one could be a strong passive in certain scenarios. Most of the time, I would probably use this counterattack because it's really strong with the A1 skill. Okay, so for his runes, I actually recommend going Desperation runes as well as counterattack, because the Desperation, that's going to allow you to have a 25% chance to stun an enemy. So we know he has 2 AoE attacks, so that's a 25% chance to stun everyone out there on the field. As well as for a counterattack rune set, you get a 15% chance to counterattack. So we know he can max out his passive to 25%. So that is 40% chance to counterattack every time he gets hit. And every time he counterattacks, if you have this rune set here, you're going to be able to potentially stun the enemies as well as put on burns. So it's a really strong combination. If you have Desperation and counterattack, try it out. I would recommend it. It helps me out quite a bit. So I'll go through this gear here. This is not ideal. I have a lot of work to do on this guy, but the Desperation, I actually had to craft these, and I just kind of had to go with what I had. So I did get lucky and got a speed rune 2 slot there. I do own these. I have some defense, which helped out his damage. If there's attack percentage, that helps out as well. I think I need to get him some more HP, I think. So I got some HP here, and I got some defense. I got some hit because we want that burn to land every time. So hit percentage is definitely useful. And don't got much here. Got some crit rate and crit damage. His crit rate is probably not very high, so I'm probably not really utilizing that. And then, of course, on the slot 6, get hit percentage because we want those burns to land. But ideally, get your hit percentage up, get your defense up, and HP. Kind of make him as a tanky type character. And this way, he can take a lot of damage, but as well, he can counterattack a lot, put on a lot of burns for damage, as well as potentially stun all those enemies. So for overall stats, I think HP might be a little low. I'm still testing this out a little bit. Defense here, he has a really high base defense. And I'm trying to fill this out because the defense debuff is so strong in this game that I don't want to fully rely on defense, but his base defense is so high that I might focus on defense and then try to work around that debuff on myself. So I'm still thinking about that. Of course, we want a little bit of speed, and then try to get some hit percentage as well, so you're not getting resisted on those burns. I don't have him sanctified, but I do have him evolved. Definitely evolve him, get him a little stronger. And then when you do get a copy of him, he might be worth sanctifying. Instead of re-rolling for another Nat 5, I think you'll use him enough that it probably is worth sanctifying him, because I use him on all my level 10 dungeons on Catacombs. I use him a lot on those. I currently use him on PvP just because I don't have a full team yet. He does okay. He does okay on PvP. But definitely in the Catacombs, he is really strong. And there's just some other areas with like mini bosses that you can stun and stuff. He's pretty useful if you can get that Desperation and counterattack runes. He'll be pretty strong for you. So anyways, hopefully this helps you guys out. And if you have him, level him out. He will help you. I will talk to you guys later.